Well, hello and welcome. One of the subscribers to this site asked me if I might go through this poem of Sappho, so I'm going to do that here. This is a poem that was quoted by Longinus in On the Sublime, which is where we get, or at least part of it was, and so it gives us a source for the text. And it was also a version of this poem was composed, of course, by Catullus, which also gives some assistance with some of the more difficult passages. Now, it's written in Aeolic dialect, which I won't go through all of the various strange things that happen in the Aeolic dialect, but takes a little bit of getting used to, and I'll explain those as we go through. I'm just going to read through the poem and translate and perhaps just comment on some of the odd forms and things. So the first thing or two important things to notice about this dialect is, firstly, you have a recessive accent. So if you look in the first line here, you're probably used to seeing theos with the accent on the second syllable, and here in this dialect you get theos, which is different to Attic, so you're getting a recessive accent. The other thing you will notice immediately too is you're getting what's called psilosis, that is, you're losing the hard breathing. So this word here, otis, is really for hostis. The H has been turned into a soft breathing. You'll see the same here with ardu for hairdo and hupakue. So don't think that there's some typo here. It is actually a smooth breathing. We'll see other things as we go along. Lots of alphas for eaters. You'll see some Homeric forms and so on. And I'll mention those as we go. So it begins phainatai moikenos isos theoisi eminoner otis enantios toi his dane kai plasion adu fornesas hupakue. And there is a run over to the next stanza, but I'll just hold it here for the moment. So kanos up here is the subject, and we get kanos for ekanos, as you might guess. So the epsilon iota is being written as an eta here, and the initial epsilon disappears. The other thing to notice here is it goes with onar, which you might guess is ho'aner, the man. So for the first bit there, that man, kanos onar, so that man, phainatai appears to me. Now, emin, you'll see this form alpha iota has been elided. You'll see this form with one or two mews in it in Homer. It's the infinitive of the verb to be, so it's like ani. So that man appears to me to be isos, equal to the gods. Otis for hostis, who, isdane, the sigma delta is written in place of zeta. And again, we're getting psilosis here, so we're getting isdane for hisdane, sit from sitting, or sits. So that man appears to me to be equal to the gods, who sits enantios opposite, toi for soy, to you, kai plasion for plasion, and nearby, this is adverb here, upakue for hupakue. Hupakue in later Greek takes a dative, I think it means to obey, but here it has the sense of to listen very intently. And the other tricky word here is the phonesas. This is an aorist genitive participle from phoneo. Now normally the linking epsilon lengthens to an eta. In this dialect it goes to an epsilon iota. And then you get sas for ses, so you get alpha for eta. So it's a genitive feminine participle. You might have expected after a dative soy, you might have expected a dative here, but a genitive after this verb of listening intently. So just putting that together, so who sits opposite to you, and from nearby he listens intently, understand, to you speaking adu for hadu or hairdo, again adverbial, sweetly. So in this first little stanza, we have a whole vignette set up by the poet or the poetess here. So that man appears to me to be the equal to the gods, who sits opposite to you, and nearby he listens to you speaking sweetly. Interesting, in this poem, the man himself is very passive. He sits and he listens. He doesn't do anything. He's just enjoying the situation. Kai gelaisas imeroen. Now this is though it were from imeroes, third declension noun, and it's being used adverbially here. And this again is an aorist genitive participle from gelao, and instead of lengthening, well, the alpha doesn't lengthen normally anyway in this verb in Attic, but here it's going to alpha iota, and this is alpha for eta here, and it's genitive again after this verb of hearing. So it's nicely, get a nice chiasmus here. If you notice carefully, you've got an adverb, participle, main verb, and then you've got the participle and adverb. So you've got a nice crossover there as well. It's very cleverly put together. So he hears, understand you, having laughed in a desirous way, in a beautiful way for him, a ro'en, with a smooth breathing. Top me aman. Now the aman is very emphatic. It's just indeed, in fact. Top is referring back to the whole of the previous section. So in fact the whole situation, and the main verb here is ptoisen. That's an aorist here. This is from ptoio, which is a fairly common verb in Greek. It means to excite. It's to make, to almost make to vibrate, to shake, to make to tremble. Often used of girls, in fact, trembling in fear or whatever. So all of this makes, now the met here, well, this is, most commentators I think say it means, it's short for moi, and it's the oi has been elided. That's quite possible. You can take it that way, and then it's a dative of the possessor, and that's the object then of the verb. Alternatively, I don't know, it could be met, and then this is an internal accusative, but I'll take it the way most of the commentators do and take that as moi. So all of this indeed makes to tremble the heart for me, en stathesin, dative plural from stathos, it's a third declension neuter, plural for singular, in my breast. Osga esse ido brochia. Now there's an alpha been elided here. We get os and os. Notice the different accents there as well, in the sense of when all this, then all this. Now that particular use of the double os or hos, you will see an example of that in Homer. If you want to look it up, it's Iliad 14, line 294. So it means when and then. So when ido, I might see, so it has to be a subjunctive, I think, from adon, from horao. Whenever I might look at you. Now, brochia, the omicron here for alpha. It's one of the other things in this dialect. You do get omicron for alpha occasionally. So this is brachia. It's adverbial. It means for a short time or for a moment. So when I look at you, it's almost even for a short moment. Then, now the main verb here is ak, on which quite a bit's been written. Many scholars think it is short for para-ak, meaning it is possible, but then it's only here in that sense. Others think it might come from be equivalent to hike, comes, but I think the most common way of taking it is for para-ak, it is possible. The ood n with the eti taken together simply means no longer. It's just it's a way of saying no longer here. It's ood n. Later on you'd write ood n, and then et for eti. And the other trick here is this phonice. There's an alpha iota elided here. This is actually an aorist infinitive after this verb from phonio. So this is an infinitive, aorist infinitive. So when I look at you, even for a short time, then it is no longer possible for me, phonesi, to speak. So when I look at you, I lose the power of speech. Very powerful, beautiful poetry. Unfortunately, I'm sort of ruining it a bit by having to talk about all the grammar, but once you get the sense of it and get over the grammar, then you should go back and enjoy this as poetry. The third stanza is al-akan men glosa iage, it's obelized. Lepton dautica croipur hupodedromeken. Now, akan, we're getting alpha for eta. So if you're looking this one up, you look up arcane with an eta here. It's an Homeric word meaning silent. Glose is easy enough for tongue. The eage, which is obelized, it's obelized because we have a hiatus here. We've got an alpha followed, so a vowel followed by a vowel. This is from an irregular verb, and it's the verb agnumi, which is to break. And eage is an irregular past tense of agnumi, to break. So it seems very odd to say my tongue is broken. Well, possible, it is poetry. Some scholars have suggested at this point that you read pepage. Pepage is one of the suggestions here, and this is from paignumi. Would be a perfect from paignumi. If you're looking this one up, it's paignumi, which is to freeze up, to set, to fix. And so if we take it like that, if we take this as pepagi, then it will mean my tongue, but in silence my tongue is frozen. Otherwise it's my tongue is broken. Lepton dautica, and immediately a lepton pour, a thin fire. Again, we get psilosis here with the breathing. This is from, and we get an alpha for an omicron, which we've seen before. Alpha for omicron. So it's from hupodromio, literally to run under, and this is a perfect. So, we've got a men and a de. So on the one hand, in silence, my tongue, either is broken or is frozen, and a thin fire has run under my my skin, and autica immediately. So, and forthwith a thin fire has run under my skin. Opatesi, now this one's tricky here. It looks like a dative plural, and it is. They're putting double pi for double mu here. And so this is a dative plural from opa, which is the same as oma, which is eyes. So that's just dative plural for eyes. Orem, there's an iota, sorry, yes, there's an iota elided here. This is from oremi with one mu. They've doubled the mu for the sake of meter, I think. Well, no, it's already long, but you get a double mu here. Oremi is just an aeolic form of horao. And again, we're getting this ood and then n for nothing. So for I see nothing with my eyes, epi orombesi de akuai. Now this is a plural here from akoe. So we're getting this noun here, akue, for akoe. Akoe normally means that which is perceived, that which is heard, but it can also refer to the ear. And I think this is the first time that it does that. So it says, my ears epirhombesi. Now epirhombesi is from a verb it's epirhombami, it would be in this dialect. You get rhombio to buzz. We get the geometrical shape of rhombus actually comes from this, but I won't go into why at this point. So it means to buzz. So my ears are buzzing. So just to put that whole stanza together there. So, but in silence my tongue is frozen, perhaps, and immediately a thin fire has run under my skin. I see nothing with my eyes, and my ears are buzzing. And the final stanza we have is cad de midros psukros eke tromos de paisin agre. Now the cad is for kata. Well, that you'll see that in Homer, because it's followed by another delta. The kata, the alpha drops out and the tor goes into a delta. And this goes with the eke, so this is really cat echo here. And cat echo, of course, is to take hold of. Idros, so sweat, so cold sweat takes over me. It's almost pours down me, or takes control of me. Tromoste, and trembling or fear. Now this one is tricky. Agre is from agrio, which it's got nothing to do with catching things. It's this dialect form for hyreo. You'll need to see the commentaries for that one. So agrio for hyreo, to seize. It probably is connected back with agrio, to catch, but it's often taken as meaning the same as hyreo, to seize or to take. So fear takes me, paisan for pasan, takes me, and it's adverbial, I think, takes me all over, completely, or wholly, or all over. Now, emi for Amy, so that's the dialect form for Amy. So I am clarotera, comparative here, I am more pale than grass. Tethne cane, this cane ending, or the ain ending here is it would be kenai in Homeric Greek. It's the perfect infinitive. So tethnakan would be tethne kenai in Homeric Greek, from thenesko, a verb that only ever appears in that shortened form in poetry. So this is an infinitive here, and the main verb is here, phinoim, and that picks up the very first word of the poem. So I appear. Now the m auta is like m aute. I appear to myself. Now there's an epsilon elided here. Epiduase. The epiduase, well, this is a variant reading from what's in there. The manuscript reading and the reading from Longinus, I should say, is epidusane, which would be a future infinitive, but there's no example of phonemai plus a future infinitive, and so it's been amended to epidues. The omega here for omicron upsilon, a genitive, so oligu. So I appear just short by a little bit, lacking by a little bit. So I appear to myself just short of to have died. So I appear to be just short of death. Now we only have this part of the next stanza, and then even then it's not, we can't make a lot of sense of this here. Alpan tolmaton for tolmeton. So all things must be dared. So each thing must be endured. Since also, well, poneta, possibly a poor man or poverty, and then there's doubts about that one. It's obelized, and we don't know how the poem ends. The scholar Martin West thinks the poem doesn't continue much beyond here. So just to do this last stanza again, so cool sweat holds me down, or perhaps it takes hold of me, and tromos, trembling, agrio, seizes me completely, and I am more pale than grass, and I appear to myself as just short of having died, just short of death. So it's an amazing poem about the effect of the poetess looking at this particular girl in this particular situation. Some people have taken this as being composed for a marriage ceremony, but many scholars don't think that's going to be the case, in fact. So I suggest you go back over it, and now that I've at least hopefully explained some of the forms and the grammar, and just enjoy this as a piece of poetry.